The dream to plant a church really began in the basement of our house when we were youth pastors. God began to speak to me about planting a church someday. I began sharing that dream with a small handful of friends who were at that time youth leaders, but were also feeling a call in a full-time ministry.
So for more than a year, every Tuesday we would gather our families together at Jim and Sue Marquis' house, and we would dream, we'd pray, we'd fast, and we'd ask God to make this dream a reality. That time was so important for us because God was shaping us as leaders, and He was preparing us for something truly remarkable.
So God began to drop specific vision in our hearts for Bridgewood Church. And we really felt like He gave us 5 specific steps that Bridgewood needed to take to impact this community. It was those 5 steps that became the mission for Bridgewood. They're really simple. Expose people to Christ, enlist people to follow, and then encourage them to grow on their spiritual journey, equip them to serve, and then empower them to go.
And it's been this mission that God gave the launch team that night that has led us to where we are today.
During that year of praying and preparing, we were so excited. We were anxious and ready to begin this new journey.
I think I drove Kurt crazy because I would call him all the time and ask him if he knew where the new church plant was going to go.
I remember we would pile into a van and drive through communities looking at vacant properties and buildings, just hoping that God would have set up some blinking sign somewhere that says, "Start a church here."
Kurt always told us that we need to be patient and to wait for the right opportunity. He would tell us that when the door opens, it's going to be obvious and it's going to be fast. So we have to be ready to go at a moment's notice.
I remember getting a phone call 3 weeks before Christmas. It was December 2001. I picked up the phone and listened as a man on the other line described this church planting opportunity in Clarkston, Michigan. He said, currently, we only have about 5 people attending the church. We have absolutely no money, and the building is really run down. And if they couldn't find someone before Christmas who was willing to do something with the church, they were just going to shut off the lights, lock the door, and walk away. As soon as he started describing that church's situation, I immediately knew in my heart that this is where the dream was going to be birthed.
I remember Kurt putting the phone down and looking straight at me and saying, "This is it. This is the city that God is calling us to. This is the community that God will transform."
And so the 6 families that were part of the launch team sold their homes and moved to Clarkston.
The amazing thing is that we bought our homes before we even knew where the church would be planted. It truly was a God thing because we landed less than 3 miles from our current location.
We didn't know a single person. We didn't really know how to plant a church, but we simply believed in the dream that God had put into our hearts.
For almost 6 months, we spent almost every night and every weekend working on renovating that little church and preparing our launch team for our first service.
With a few days left before our launch service, I remember getting the launch team together in our newly renovated building. We've been running on little sleep for several months, but we were so full of excitement and passion as we looked around and saw the beginning of the dream that God had placed within our hearts.
So we began a tradition that we still practice to this day. We placed our hands on every single seat and every wall, and we began praying for each person that would someday fill the seats, and we asked God to transform and grow each life to the purpose and the potential He created them for.
On August the 25th, 2002, we held our first service. What an incredible day to see the dream become a reality as Bridgewood officially opened its doors to the community.
When we first started, we didn't know if anyone would come. So we told the launch team to park their cars right out in front so that it would look like there were actually people attending the church.
Well, in a few short months, all these people just started showing up. And there were people parking on the grass, there were people parking on the side of the road. There were cars everywhere.
And within 8 months, we knew that we were out of space and we had to find another option, and quickly.
There was just this unbelievable hunger and passionate thirst for God. Every week, people packed into that small facility. The building filled up to the point that people were sitting on the floors and peeking through the windows. We had expanded to 2 services, added a modular unit to the building, but still we didn't have enough room. We were completely full and packed to capacity.
And that's when we knew in 2003 that this was more than just a church plant. We knew that we were part of something very special. God was up to something more than we had ever anticipated.
We immediately began asking God to provide a larger facility. But the biggest question was, how do we move a new church with limited resources in Clarkston?
I can remember I was at a Chili's restaurant, and God showed me the layout for the first phase of our current church campus. So I grabbed a Chili's napkin real quick and I began to sketch it out. I tucked it right inside my pocket. It was that very napkin that I would pull out and hand to our architect, and I said, this is what Bridgewood Church needs to look like. Well, through a miraculous set of circumstances, we were able to sell our small piece of property for commercial value. And God supernaturally provided us with 13 acres of prime real estate right on M15. And we did all of it through just a handshake with a businessman that we didn't even know. He generously deeded us 2 acres of that actual property where the church right now sits, so that we could begin the construction process without any money out of our pocket. This businessman was truly a gift from God, and he's become a really close friend to this day. God then led a group of Christian businessmen to take a huge step of faith and give us over $2 million to build Bridgewood Church. At that time, we couldn't even find a bank or a loan institution that would even consider doing this for us. They generously allowed us to ramp our payback to them as the church grew. It didn't take long at all. Within 9 months, we had the monthly finances coming in each month to make not only a full payment, but at that time we were also adding staff pastors. If it wasn't for their courageous faith in God and in us, we would have never been able to do what we did in such a short amount of time. We're forever grateful to them for their partnership to Bridgewood Church.
I remember standing on this property in 2004 when it was literally just a field of dreams, and we dedicated it to the Lord. People came prayerful and confident that as this building emerged, it would become a place where friends, family, and neighbors would come and discover Christ. We had the potential now, with this campus, to reach so many people.
Just a few days before moving into our new building, Kurt called the entire church into the Spiritual Life Center. He told us to write down the names of people that we were praying for to come to faith in Christ. So we wrote those names on the altar and on the stage. We wrote scriptures over every door in the church, asking God to bless everyone who passed through. To think that right now, those names are under the carpet and the drywall, but God sees them and continues to answer our prayers.
We celebrated our grand opening on June 19th, 2005. It was obvious that God was up to something unique. People from all over the area continued to come and lives were being changed.
It wasn't long before we packed out the weekend service and filled up our parking lot. We expanded the parking lot twice and then added a second service.
Then we've expanded and renovated almost every square foot of this campus. We're using every possible space that we have available. Throughout our 10-year journey and some challenging economic pressures, God has generously blessed us financially every year of our existence. This year we're on pace to give more locally and globally than any other year in our history.
A lot has changed over the past 10 years. We have more people, more tools, and more space. But there's one thing that remains the same.
We are passionate about connecting people to Jesus Christ. People who are hurting and going through all kinds of trouble. People whose marriages are falling apart. People who are trying to break free from addiction, and especially people who have never experienced Jesus before.
Some of you have been here since the very beginning, and you have sacrificed, you have given, you have served, You invited your friends. You've seen people discover Christ, and you've passionately pursued growing your own relationship with Christ. For that, we are so grateful for you and the sacrifices that you have made. You're what has made an eternal difference in the lives at Bridgewood Church. And listen, this is not the end. This is only the beginning.
God is not done. He's going to take us on a journey that far exceeds anything that we could ask, think, or imagine.
I've been able to witness an incredible move of God, and to be a part of that has been amazing for me. Bridgewood is a family, and to have an incredible place like this to raise my family, to experience life, to be part of what God is doing, there are no words.
I'm so thankful to God for allowing me to be a part of this, to see lives changed and transformed. There's nothing better that you can do with your life than to give it away for the Lord and let Him use it.
We have no idea. I don't think we do. We have no idea what the next 10 years holds for Bridgewood. I really believe that. I mean, just look back at the past 10 years. This has been incredible. The next 10 years, we have no idea, but I'm ready to go there, and I can't wait to see it happen.
The past 10 years of Bridgewood has completely changed my life as a person. It's been such a privilege and such an honor for me to be involved in what God has done. This has truly been an amazing journey that we've traveled together, and through it all, God has been so good to us and so faithful. What's really important as we move forward is to maintain the clarity and the vision of what God has called us to. And what I mean by that is continuing to focus on seeing people's lives transformed by the love of Jesus. I really think God's going to give us a challenging vision for the next 10 years. But I really believe that if we'll just stay true to our values, make sure that God gets all the glory, and that we're authentic, passionate, we laugh, love, care for people, live generously, that the sky is the limit. I'm so excited about the next 10 years, and I can't wait to share this journey with you.